Hey everybody, Graeme and Rob here with the Jedi Knights Watch. Thanks for tuning in to another episode. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, Rob. And what is that?
We are going to talk about movies.
Yes.
And not just movies, but
the top 10 movies, our top 10 movies of the 1980s.
Yes. So what we are planning on doing, if you haven't really guessed that yet, is maybe every other week we'll do a top 10 80s, a top 10 90s, top 10 2000s, and a top 10 2010s. And if everybody's happy, maybe we'll do a bonus for the 70s.
If you've been a follower of the Jedi Knights Watch since the beginning, which is a few months now, you know that we're very much into collectibles, superheroes, Game of Thrones, stuff like that. But with all these superheroes that we're into, we wouldn't have them if we didn't have movies. So therefore, we're obviously going to be movie buffs as well. And we thought it would be fun to discuss with you our top 10 movies of the 80s. Please remember, this is subjective. This is not fact or fiction. It's just our opinion.
Yep. Just like it's your opinion, to be able to put in the comments what are your favorite top 10, movies and all that. So
yep.
Now keep in mind, this is our top 10 blended together. So what we did was we went ahead and we each made our top 10 list, and then we kind of averaged them out to make the top 10. Some that were on my list were not on Graham's list. Some were that on Graham's list were not on my list. So we tried to figure something out to where we just kind of mashed them together. So this is the Jedi Knights Watch top 10.
And at the end of the video, we will we'll show you on the side of the screen or at the bottom what each of our lists were, just so you can see what was the same and what was different. We're going to quickly go through a couple underrated movies, some runner-ups, and then we're going to work our way from 10 all the way down to the number one movie of the 1980s.
Ooh. Before we get started with the top 10, what is one of the most underrated films that wouldn't make a top 10 list, but to you kind of grew up with it, it was, in your head, nostalgia kind of thing. And what would you say that movie would be for you?
So my runner-up movie is going to be LADYHAWKE, and not a lot of people really know about this movie. It's kind of one of those gems that you just kind of stumble upon, and you're like, whoa, it's a pretty good movie. Came out in 1985, which was a great year because that's the year I was born. And I grew up watching this with my father, and it was a fun movie. It stars Matthew Broderick and Michelle Pfeiffer, and it's a medieval fantasy about two lovers that are cursed, and they turn into like a werewolf at night, and the guy turns into a werewolf at night, and the woman turns into a hawk during the day. So they're never together, and that's the curse, and they're trying to break it, and that's how the movie goes.
Wow, I have never heard of that movie.
Actually getting a 7.0 on IMDb, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's IMDb, but that's a pretty respectable score. So if you haven't, check out LADYHAWKE.
I've never heard of it, and it sounds really interesting.
I actually bought it on iTunes, and it's so underrated that they don't even have it in HD.
Well, my movie that I find very underrated is The Critters, or just Critters. It came out in 1986. It's pretty much in a town where, I don't remember exactly where it's located, but I know they're like on a farm. It's a family, and these aliens, these little critters, almost look like gremlins, crash onto Earth next to their farm or in their little town and start attacking people, and they need to eat. They're hungry. They're always hungry. And it's kind of like a horror, but kind of like a comedy too. Just a movie that, one of the first horror movies that I actually was allowed to watch and enjoyed and all of that. So
those are our most underrated movies. They wouldn't make our top 10 or maybe even the runner-up, but they are movies that you guys should check out. All right, guys, here we go with our list of top 10 movies of the 1980s. At number 10 coming in is Aliens. Now, this movie came out in 1986, which was 7 years after the original Alien came out, and it surprises me for how well Alien did that it took them this long to come out with this movie. It does star Sigourney Weaver, and takes place 57 years after Alien. What I like about this movie, I feel like there's a lot more action as opposed to Alien. I feel like Alien is very interesting but it kind of started off a little slow, and this one kind of gets you right into it. You know, Ripley wakes up and she's trying to figure out where she is, and they're finding out there's more of these aliens, and now they're going to this planet, and she finds this little girl, and so on and so forth. And I'll let you take it from there, Rob.
Yeah, it was
like
directed
about this movie.
I like that they turned it into like an action flick rather than a horror flick. It's directed by James Cameron, who's done a lot of great movies such as Titanic and I believe
Avatar
and The Abyss. I think
he did Terminator 2 as well.
Yeah, I think he didn't do the first one, but he did the second one.
Yeah,
right.
I believe so.
And then I'm just looking at like the budget here, and it was only $18 million budget and made between 131 and 183 million dollars. So it did very well. I know you said you like it better than the original. I like the original a little better because I like that horror feel.
All right, so that was number 10. Rob, why don't you hit us with number 9?
Number 9 is E.T. E.T. actually introduced us to the little actress Drew Barrymore, who we saw growing up in the 90s and all these chick flick movies, comedies, and what have you. It was directed by Steven Spielberg. It's more of a family movie. It's kind of has that touching storyline where it's about family and friendship. And it's a movie that you fall in love with the first time you watch it.
You know, it's an emotional movie as well, and they had Alien come out before this, and we had Alien movies, but I don't think before this movie came out we ever had an alien come down to Earth and then become best friends with a little boy, and you see that bond created. Yeah. It was something that hadn't been done before, and it was a movie that really tugged at your heartstrings and made you care about the characters, and the storyline as well was just magnificent. Yeah. I will say, though, growing up, it scared the crap out of me when I was a little boy. I thought E.T. was going to come out of my closet, so it was not always one of my favorite
scenes is when he's hiding in the closet with the stuffed animals. I don't know why. Or when he's going after the Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, the Reese's Pieces, and then he comes on, he's like... So from number 9, a Steven Spielberg movie, we're going to hop to number 8, which is also a Steven Spielberg movie, and it's Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes.
Rob, do you know what year this movie came out?
1980 something.
Good enough for me.
Can I guess? I'm gonna go with 1986.
1981.
Oh, jeez.
And the film starts really fast, and it's kind of one of the most iconic scenes ever, where he's going through the tomb, and you're just on pins and needles wondering what's going to happen to him. And then they have the big boulder, obviously, coming down.
Yep.
That scene is so iconic, and just how Spielberg starts off the movie is just, you know, kind of fast off the get-go. And I remember it was just the biggest craze during the 80s when we went to Disney World. They had the Indiana Jones ride. They had like, you know, the live action of Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
They were doing shows and stuff like that. It's about a down-to-earth character. Like, you think he's almost like anybody out there. Like, he's afraid of snakes, and he's running from these guys. Like, he doesn't have this magnificent plan. He's just somebody like you or I. Yeah. And it's really interesting.
Yeah, I was actually pretty late to the party. I won't say how late I was to the party for Indiana Jones, but it was a movie that I felt like just another Harrison Ford movie. I felt like it was a lot like Tomb Raider and Uncharted and all those video games. I was like, I've seen it already. Everybody talks about it, but I'm afraid if I watch it, it's going to be overhyped. I'm just going to be bored. I ended up watching it, loved it, made my top 10. So, you know, it's definitely Harrison Ford. You have that kind of goofy, quirky, witty kind of personality, which everybody loves, especially back in the 80s. And kind of what helped Star Wars, too, I think, was Han Solo. So one of my favorite scenes is when he's at the bar and then he meets that girl.
Yep.
Or you re-meet, because he already knew the girl, right?
Yep.
From the past. Yeah, that scene was pretty cool when he kind of helped her out there.
Yeah, and this movie is full of iconic scenes, and I think the staging and the framing of each scene is just fantastic, and it makes it all that more interesting to watch.
Yeah.
There's a scene where, I don't know if you remember, one of the bad guys is like getting his sword, and he's doing all these things, and he wants to fight him, and Indy just kind of looks at him, and he takes out his gun and he shoots him instead of fighting him.
Oh, yep.
And he was supposed to actually go get into a fight with him, according to the script, but a lot of people on set were suffering from food poisoning, Harrison Ford being one of them.
Oh,
And
wow.
he said to Spielberg, like, basically, you know, I'm just not up for it. What if I just shoot the guy? And he said, yeah, let's see it. Let's go with it. And it made it into the movie. So it's a pretty cool story on that scene, too.
All right, so number 7. Number 7 is Back to the Future. Came out in 1985, summer of 1985, and stars Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Man, what a great movie. Back to the Future has I think a soft place, or a good place in everybody's heart. When you first start that movie, it kind of brings you back to that time, to the 80s, even the 90s, kind of just as a kid.
With this movie, it's really amazing, an amazing script and editing with very little holes in it, and it's really entertaining from start to finish. They set up his family life really well, and everything that you learn about them in the beginning really comes into play later in the movie, so it's kind of important. And just an awesome idea of time and how time works and how you can affect it. I think it's just great for kids, for adults. You know, watching it as a kid, you think it's more based for a kid, but then watching it as an adult, you kind of understand some of these lines that they're saying, and it's actually kind of, you know, more towards adults as well. And it's just a great movie for all ages, and great chemistry in the relationships of Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. They really played off each other well. I thought the casting was just amazing choices. Like Christopher Lloyd, just his gestures and the way he ad-libs, just a really great movie. But how awkward would it be if your mom had the hots for you?
Yeah. I don't know, man. I'd be weird.
But I think too, during the movie, you're really in suspense because, you know, with this whole time thing, it's like if he doesn't get it right, everything is screwed up. So you're really sitting on the edge of your seat, kind of watching and hoping for the best.
Yep. Yeah, and it's I love the setting and the atmosphere of the movie too. It's man, the town and everything. It's pretty cool.
So number 7 is Back to the Future. Now we go to number 6. We're going from a family movie to a Christmas movie. And that's going to be Die Hard.
A Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie, Rob.
I'm pretty sure the director, when he, or the writer, when they wrote it and directed it, they didn't expect it to be, for people to believe that it's a Christmas movie. But now it is.
I think it was just an extra bonus, right?
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about Batman and the fact that, you know, he's so cool and anybody can be him because he doesn't have superpowers. But I feel like this is the ultimate everyday kind of Joe Schmo movie who becomes a hero. And that's what makes it amazing. Just an ordinary cop who goes to a Christmas party, and it's held hostage by terrorists, and it's on Christmas Eve. So it just makes it that much more of an awesome movie. And you kind of just go through this journey on with John McClane, and you kind of feel anxious with him and find yourself kind of wondering how's he going to get out of this? The movie is very well written, nonstop action. The guy doesn't even have shoes. It's awesome. I guess an 80s shoot 'em up movie, maybe you'd say.
Yep. So it also stars Alan Rickman, and he it's one of his better movies too. As the bad guy, he plays the perfect
Hans.
bad guy. Yeah. And I really like the movie. Every time I think about the movie now, I go back and I watched it with my cousin one night, and there's like a drinking game where every time he says the F word, you have to, it's every time he says the F word, and then every time he gets shot or like he starts bleeding or something, you have to take a drink. It's the perfect action movie. It's probably the John Wick of the 80s.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's amazing. I really like it for an action flick.
I just remember watching, and my dad let me watch this way too young, probably 4 or 5 years old. But I remember watching it, and he was such a hero to me because you see how beat up he gets. His shirt's black, he's bloody everywhere by the end of the movie, and yet he still survives. The movie has great one-liners.
Oh, I was gonna say that has great one-liners that everybody.
Welcome to the party, pal. Yep. Yippee-ki-yay, mother beep.
Oh yeah, great
so
stuff.
Die Hard is we're getting up to the meat and potatoes here. Die Hard is just
yeah, and a lot of people, Die Hard would probably be in top 3. I would probably even say. So.
And I'll say before we go, before we go any further, our top 6 are really almost interchangeable. Like, there's not much that are separating these movies here.
Yeah, and the only reason they're really kind of mixed and matched is because we put our list together. So it kind of looks a little different than, some of you, but yeah, it is what it is. Number 5, The Terminator. Terminator stars Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you didn't know that, then you need to do some research. Directed by, James Cameron. And then release date is 1984. It also stars Michael Biehn. And what can you say about Terminator other than great things, right? I mean, it kind of started that whole sci-fi robot kind of. They've made so many robot movies afterwards from it. He's basically he comes from space and he's out to kill Sarah Connor.
It's kind of another time movie too,
Yeah, it's another time movie
with time.
And you and I are such huge fans of T2. So seeing him as the bad guy in the first one and the good guy in the second one. I actually saw the second one first. So when I was younger. And then I saw the first one. I was like, wait, why is he bad? What happened? So because I was younger and I didn't know what was going on. But yeah, the action's amazing. It even somehow gets better in the second one with CGI and all that. But we'll talk about that another day. But I mean, one-liners like, I'll be back. And just certain things that goes on in Terminator. Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. Just a badass film. Really.
And it's an iconic film. And like Rob said, it's a unique story with a great plot. Something, again, that wasn't done before. And with the 80s, we had more technology. We didn't really have a whole lot of CGI, but we had more technology where they could do a lot more with movies and use their imaginations.
Yeah.
The Terminators feel like they could be like a real threat, like in real life.
Yeah.
And the movie just feels kind of real and authentic. Like it's believable. This could happen. Yeah. I think for the most part, the movie did a great job with special effects.
Yeah.
Because this was before CGI. The only real questionable scene I had was, when he's taking his eye out in the mirror in his hotel room. You can tell it's a robot. But at the same time, I still really enjoy that scene. It's suspenseful the whole way through. It's suspense.
It's just even like the motorcycle chase scene, like just amazing. And the recent Terminators they're doing now is just kind of, hey, what can we do to make it better? Well, let's redo it, and with actual special effects, and
that's how this movie and Terminator 2 were so good, because they're still doing the same plot, the same movie 20 some years down the road,
right?
30 some years down the road.
Yeah.
So we went from one Arnold Schwarzenegger prime movie to another one where he's in his prime, and that was Predator, that came out in 1987.
Oh, that's number 4?
Coming in at number 4.
4.
So we're getting there, guys. So when this first came out, this was seen more as a horror film, and if you've seen it, you know why. The movie gets started really quick, and it's a journey of just constant suspense that makes you kind of look over your shoulder the entire time. The Predator himself is so badass, looks super cool with all of his weapons and technology, and the costume design was amazing. Arnold versus the Predator at the end is epic standoff that leaves the audience on the edge of their seat and really just wanting more. Unfortunately, I don't know if we really ever got a film after that lived up to the height that this one did, but the first one is just, it's got a lot of rewatchability, and it's awesome.
You don't really get to see him. They do like the whole thing where like you're seeing his vision more than you actually see him. It's kind of like that Godzilla effect where you see him at the end. It's got that horror aspect. He's got so many abilities and weapons, and it's such a cool movie. That jungle movie, like it's pretty sweet. So it's a movie that I go back to all the time.
And you're wondering, why is he there? What's his motive? And I think that makes the movie a little bit more scary as well, because you just, like you said, you don't know a whole lot about this villain until the end. And then even when you hear his roar, like it just sends chills down your spine.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Number 3 on our list, and this might surprise a lot of people, but it's one of our favorites, and that is RoboCop. Stars Peter Weller as Murphy, or RoboCop, and also stars Nancy Allen. This was definitely one of my first action movies. I was able to watch it at like 4 years old. It was. I know. And I turned out fine. So I don't know what people are talking about with all this stuff, but we won't get into that. Watching it now, I'm like, wow, there's like the F-bomb in every 5 seconds. I'm like, why did my mom let me watch this?
His arm get blown off.
Yeah. The gas station scene where he's like, yeah. But man, what a movie. I really do feel like, people might be asking, why is RoboCop better than Terminator on our list? T2 is better than RoboCop. RoboCop is better than Terminator. My opinion, our opinion, I would say. The story is really good in the original RoboCop. After that, it kind of like went downhill each movie. Even the remake wasn't all that great. I felt like they could have done so much more. I think what really hurt them is they made it PG-13.
Yes.
And they weren't able to have like that RoboCop feel that we remember. One of the best one-liners in a movie to me. I'll buy that for $1.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, if they're not as familiar with RoboCop, they just see it as another superhero movie. But really, like you said, it's rated R. And the movie can be seen as extremely violent, bleak, because this guy, he dies, he loses his family, he loses everything, and now he's kind of like a slave to being a cop. But it's really good at building these characters, and it's really good at making you feel...
Keep the flashbacks.
Yep. Yeah, and you really feel for Murphy, and you really despise these bad guys. The guy that plays Red Foreman...
Yeah.
He does a great job at making you hate him. Yeah, we watched this as kids, but I think watching it now, you really just see that it's for adults.
The way his holster like opens up with the machine goes in there. Very cool.
So I think the reason why, at least in my opinion, that this is better than the first Terminator is because I think the revenge factor. You're seeing this hero go through all this trial and terrible things, losing his life, and at the end he finally gets his revenge on the bad guys, and it's justified, and I think that's why I really like it. Okay, so there's only 2 left.
Only 2 left, Graham. What is our number 2 on the list?
All right, number 2 on the list of the top 10 80s movies is
made the list.
Batman. Not too dark, not too kid friendly, the perfect balance. It's a believable and simple story that wasn't too over the top. You have all these movies now with CGI and the world's ending. This is more of a mobster mentality, and the Batman is going to come and save the day. I feel like the score in this movie was great. You say Batman and you just hear the theme song for Batman.
Between the first Batman and the second Batman, like just the score is amazing.
Yep. And Joker was iconic. And Jack Nicholson wanted to take things from the comic book Joker, but also kind of make it his own. And kind of what he did was he brought a Joker that we've never seen before, mixing the traditional with a mob-like influence. So that was really cool. He had the Batmobile, just a lot of cool things that everybody loved.
One of the coolest Batmobiles, too. I love that original. Well, I guess it's not the original Batmobile, but it was also directed by Tim Burton, which is kind of a surprise. But when you watch it, you're like, oh, yeah, this is definitely Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. I honestly think it's one of Tim Burton's best films. Both of his Batman movies are some of his best films. And it starred Michael Keaton as Batman. A lot of people say, hey, he's the best Batman. And I would have to agree with that. One of the cool things with this original Batman movie is it just made the list in the 80s, by the way, because it could have been 1990, and the budget was only $35 million, but it actually got $411 million. Back then, that's a lot of money.
Making bank
in the 80s, man.
So that was number 2. Before we get to our number 1, Rob is going to list some of our honorable mentions that just missed the cut.
Platoon, Top Gun, Scarface, The Shining, and Child's Play, and Nightmare on Elm Street.
And The Goonies.
Some of those horror movies actually helped jumpstart horror flicks as we know them, the hack and slash films. So those are pretty big in the 80s. And we have The Goonies, which is definitely a cult classic. We had an issue with number 1, Graham.
We do, and it's my issue, I guess, because I think it's more clear cut for Rob. Number 1 is going to be Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, kind of combined into one. Just the two together just make awesomeness. I think Rob really likes Empire Strikes Back better. It's really close for me, but growing up, I always loved Return of the Jedi, just because you got to see a lot of great characters and the good guys finally getting their victories, and everything kind of just coming to a head. So, Rob, did you know that Empire Strikes Back is one of the only movies that doesn't have a single victory for the good guys?
Really?
So the rebels lose Hoth, Han gets frozen in carbonite, Luke loses to Vader. There's no moral victory for the good guys in that movie.
But yeah, that's really interesting. That they never win. They're getting their butts kicked until the next movie, I guess, where they start doing some action. But yeah, I mean the actors in this. I mean, it's starring Mark Hamill, who's been doing a lot lately. Does a lot with like animated movies, video games, such as well. Harrison Ford, who we talked about, Carrie Fisher, just a lot of great actors. It was directed by Irvin Kershner. Did you know that?
No, I thought Lucas did it.
George Lucas did the story, and I think
I thought he was always on set too and whatnot.
Yeah, I'm sure he was. He owned it, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, they got a new director for this one. I'm not sure of the story behind that. I got to mention $547 million
For Empire?
for Empire.
Wow.
So yeah, so combined with the two movies, I'm sure they made at least $1 billion.
They hit it big, and Empire Strikes Back introduced some really great characters. Like the first Star Wars was great, but I feel like they really hit their stride in Empire Strikes Back. Some people consider it one of the best movies ever made, let alone in the 80s. But they had characters like Yoda, Lando, Boba Fett, along with new planets. You got to see new ecosystems and places to visit.
Yeah.
We learned more about the Force, I feel like. And it has one of the best plot twists in movie history, with Vader telling Luke that he's his father. Like, nobody saw that coming. I'm pretty sure almost everybody on set didn't even know that was coming. He kept it so secret for that wow factor. And it's, to this day, just one of the most iconic lines, one of the most iconic plot twists.
Well, not only that, but then there's another plot twist. That there's the brother and sister, So there's multiple plot twists going on in these films. Like Graham said, a lot of new characters that you meet, new planets. Some of the best scenes I feel are in Empire Strikes Back, with Hoth and Luke Skywalker training and all that kind of stuff. So to me, just two phenomenal movies, two movies that everybody kind of, the movie nerd culture always says Star Wars, so yeah, that definitely had to make our number one.
Kind of with the Return of the Jedi, it's like you're seeing one of the greatest stories ever told kind of come full circle. And to me, it has very little lull in it. Maybe in the middle of the movie a little bit while on Endor. But overall, I still think it's a fantastic movie. And you also, I think another reason why I really love this movie is you get to see one of the greatest mastermind villains finally kind of unveiled in The Emperor. And you see that great final battle scene where Luke is really fighting against the dark side. And it kind of ends with Vader's redemption and coming back to the good side. So it just left the audience wanting more. And the trilogy is amazing when afterwards you still think about the characters and kind of wonder what happened and stuff like that. So guys, those were our top 10. You can see the list right here. And then you can see our lists that we did individually as well. Let us know what you think of the list. Let us know what your favorite movie of the 80s was, and if we hit the mark or fell short.
All right, guys. Thank you very much, and guess we'll see you soon.
See you soon, guys. Goodbye.